Blake, would you ever bet on a dark horse?
Toby, I don't gamble. It's a sin. Unless it's the NFL.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who may or may not have spent a ton of time this summer betting on the ponies. And I'm here with my co-host who rides the ponies in Vegas for every race, Toby Walters.
That sounds like such an antiquated term to say, like, I bet on the ponies. Like, you know, you're going back to like mafia days in the 1900s.
Was it really not ponies?
No, I mean, you're betting on horses. You're not actually, I don't think anybody actually bets on ponies, but, you know, it's just another slang for what they're saying. They're making bets on horses. But speaking of horses, and I'm sure there was some, you know, origination of the term, like betting on a dark horse. And I like to think of myself in our Church Gear Fantasy Football League as the dark horse.
Well, if the dark horse is defined by the guy who didn't do anything literally for 8 weeks, then yes.
So as you know this story, Blake, and now our listeners can know, I asked my wife to lock the app store on my phone so I'd stop.
Oh, you're going to tell this?
Yeah. So I stopped downloading distracting apps. It's like I can take Candy Crush off my phone and focus on work, but I can just as easily put it back on. So I was like, sweetie, can you lock my app store to help me with this? And she said yes. And then she forgot the PIN, the password, to unlock it. So I haven't been able to get into my fantasy football app for, like you said, 8 weeks.
Is this why you stopped paying me? Did you forget the like ADP login as well?
Yes, totally. Sorry about that.
I knew it was an innocent mistake.
I know. We'll get back to paying you someday. But you so helpfully mentioned to me, you know, I think, Toby, you can get on there on your laptop. And then the next day I was like, hey, Blake, guess what? I can get on there on my laptop.
Guys, for real, Toby came up to me and was like, you can get on the website?
I didn't know if it was a website or just an app. Shut up, Blake.
I've only been rendered speechless like 3 times in my life, and you have one of them.
You're very welcome. So I logged in, and I actually like put people into my lineup that were playing.
Did that help?
Well, first of all, Jamar Chase got me 55 points. I wonder, like, what's the most points ever in a single week? I feel like 55's got to be up there for a single player.
God, is there no justice that this man gets 55 once he finally starts paying attention?
So I was pitted against our buddy Michael Short from Hill Country Bible Church in Austin. And he told me afterwards, after I beat his butt, that he was banking on his, what he likened to a Toby bye week, because he knew that I had not like been updating my team and it was like an easy win. So he was fully expecting an easy win. And then I beat him. And then this week, I'm pitted against the number 1 player in our league. And I, again, updated my team. And I am at 51% shot right now after 2 of his players underperformed on a Thursday night. So, Blake, this dark horse is running up the ranks.
Guys, everyone, just so you know, Toby is proud of himself for doing well after doing nothing for 8 weeks.
But now I'm doing something.
Okay.
And is that like the most sacrilegious thing to you that I would?
Oh, in fantasy football, yes.
Yeah.
I would. You would have gotten a message from me week 1 if I was in this league. Week 2, you would have been gone. You would have ceased to exist. I would have kicked you out.
So if I was like, Blake, I haven't read my Bible in 8 weeks, you'd be like, that's okay. You know, God's grace covers it. We can get back into it. But if I say, Blake, I have not updated my team in fantasy football in 8 weeks, like, I'm dead to you. Is that basically it?
If we are in the league and I'm the commissioner, you do not make it to 8 weeks. You don't even make it past 2.
You're a real piece of work, Blake.
Ask me how many people I've kicked out of my fantasy league.
More than 1, I'm guessing.
Kicked out family members.
That's not, yeah, you
merciless.
I feel like people don't realize how cutthroat you are with things that you care about, and then other things you're just like, whatever.
It's just, you cannot have negligence, you know? You can't just not do something. And the person who helps me prosecute negligence in the public opinion court, the Chief Justice himself, audio engineer at Christ Church of the Valley, and the sexiest Latin man in church production, Ivan Talamantes.
Yeah.
All right. For the sake of truth, tell us your name, because I cannot say it, and I'm an idiot.
Ivan Talamantes.
Oh, I didn't do too bad on the last name.
You did terrible on. You said it like a white guy.
Wait a minute. Am I not a white guy?
You're a gringo.
Full gringo.
Yes, full gringo.
Yeah. Hey, what a joy, friends. What a joy
Yes.
to see you and to be here. I'm just grateful.
Welcome to the show, and I apologize in advance for Blake.
I also apologize for me, but I am very glad that you're here.
Yeah, it's all right. People ask me all the time, "Hey, how you say your name? Is Ivan or is Ivan?" And I go, you know what? I don't care. It's the same guy. It's just as one way is the gringo way, and the other one is just my native in Espanol. So you choose, but I'm okay.
I wish he could reach through the computer and knight me and be like, I knight you, gringo.
I could see you, Blake, doing it like, well, Apple come up with a new car. It's called the iVan.
Okay.
Like, that's the real gringo way to say it.
Thank you, Toby, for looking just as dumb as me. Let's get to 5 Truths and a Lie, which is our weekly game to introduce our guest, where you get to know a little bit about them, but they see if they can pull a lie off a fast one between me and Toby. You feeling confident, Toby?
No,
All right, neither am I.
but I'm also a dark horse, as we discovered from our fantasy football.
Can you do me a favor and give me my Toby bye and not answer? just 8 weeks, then you can answer.
Nope.
Number 1, I have visited all the countries in Latin America except Brazil. That's
a lot of countries.
Well, that's a big one to miss if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Number 2, I won first place at a state competition playing acoustic guitar at the age of 15.
Okay, so 2 years ago.
Number 3, I can fade out when I get my blood work done.
I assume he
Same.
means like passing out. Yeah.
Yeah,
fade out.
Yvonne, same.
Okay.
Number 4, I have been married with my bride for 19 years. Number 5, I play several instruments and learned to play the first one when I was 8 years old. And finally, number 6, in my journey in the USA, I have been living in 4 different states. I'm locking in that he has visited Brazil. Like, that number 1 is not a lie. There's no way he missed Brazil.
I was totally going to jump on that before you did, but look at you, Blake. You actually got to something before me for once in your life.
Is it good if instead of writing your coattails, I just steal the things you would have done? Is that more impressive?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so these are tricky. Like, nothing's jumping out at me. I'm going to say he does not play several instruments, that maybe he just plays guitar. So let's see what the lie is.
All right. I've locked in Brazil and Toby has locked in the several instruments. What is the lie?
Yeah, well, in my journey in USA, I have been living only in 3 states at this moment, not in 4. The other ones are totally true.
Yvonne, you are a liar.
Okay.
What are those 3 states, Yvonne?
Yeah, well, our first move from Mexico was Texas, El Paso, Texas. Then from El Paso, Texas, we went to Chicago, Illinois. And now we are in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, what's your just personal favorite as far as vibe of the city?
Well, great people, great community for sure. The weather is nice when now it's nice, right? After the breaking the record of more than 100 days, over 100 degrees, that was wild.
Yeah.
But now that the weather is coming back to normal, I mean, it's really nice. I mean, all the evenings are really nice. And we're loving the weather. The mountains that make us feel close to Chihuahua in Mexico in that regard is very similar. The vibe, the desert vibe. Yeah.
Maybe you could do Chicago during the summer and Phoenix in the winter. You just
That's a fantastic idea.
Yes.
You have had quite the gambit between those 3 cities. Like, those are pretty different. Although I guess El Paso is not extremely different from Phoenix. How did you not end up going to Brazil? How is that even geographically possible?
Yeah, well, in my years of touring, I was so blessed to be doing that for 15 years. And I was very blessed to be traveling a lot with a lot of different Latino artists in Mexico. And I was just blessed because I started touring really young, just after graduating from the college. And for any reason of destiny, I don't know. I mean, the only country that I'm missing still today is Brazil. And it's something that I want to do for sure. But I did several times the other several countries.
And again, is Brazil the only one that speaks Portuguese in Latin America?
I think so. I don't know.
And do you have any Portuguese in your toolbox?
Not at all. No. Not at all. But I know it's huge in the music industry and all that. So because of that also, I want to go.
Yeah. Okay, so from your touring days, give us an overall just sort of snapshot of your background in production, what you've done, and what led you to your role today.
Yeah, well, I born in Chihuahua, Mexico. That is the border with Texas. I was there, and I was serving in our local church for more than 20 years. In that period of time, I was doing the touring as well in combination with my service like a volunteer in our local church in Chihuahua. Then in 2012, we moved to El Paso, Texas. And at that time, we received the blessing to be parents with our first daughter, Jimena. She's our oldest. She's 12 right now. And when that situation, that miracle arrived, is where I realized that, man, I need to do a little bit of change in my gears, and it's how I started looking for different opportunities and possibilities just to chill a little bit the traveling, because to be in the road is amazing, but, the time consuming is deep. So in those years, traveling around and doing live shows until today. I still do live church for church, corporate events, mixing and mastering in my local studio, in my home studio, and everything that includes audio. I love to tell a story using sounds. That's kind of a little bit.
I tell Toby that telling a story using sounds is me talking, and he says that it's just nonsense.
And unfortunately, when I'm in a tight room with you and not all the sounds come out of your mouth, Blake,
some of those sounds can be very lethal.
Yes, they can. So, Yvonne, as part of your journey, you ended up at Willow Creek, one of the biggest, at the time, most influential churches in America. What was it like mixing at Willow? And what was so different that you guys were doing there in production as opposed to, maybe just sort of the average church in America?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things that I will be forever grateful, with my journey at Willow. I learned a lot of things, of course. I was impressed with the value of production in the church. The quality of people that I met over there. World-class people that became family really soon. But I don't know, man, for me, Willow was my first job in a mega church, in that regard, because I was a volunteer for so many years in Mexico, and then we volunteered in another church in El Paso, Texas as well. But to have an official job in this kind of level of church with the facilities, oh my gosh, the broadcast facility, you guys visited, just visited recently, right? And
yeah.
And it's just mind-blowing. But for me, all this about running run-throughs and, the process, the people, and at the end, the result of the final product, in this case, a beautiful service, right? That were some of the things that were amazing. And I will always say, in conversation with my dad, he told me one day, man, you always want to have Willow tattoo in your DNA. And I go, that's totally true. That I'm very grateful for the season of ministry over there.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was your touring days that prepared you to, mix in such a large environment?
For sure. I think when you are touring, you realize you face so many challenges when you are in the road. Sometimes the lacking of time, sometimes a different gear that you negotiate to a contract rider and the rider, and then you arrive and then the reality check is different, right? All those challenges. I started doing arenas and stadiums and different theaters very young. So for me, it's always a nice challenge when you arrive to a new facility, to a new venue, and you start doing your thing and then reacting in response to the venue. But in that regard, Willow always has been great in terms of the integration and the quality of the gear and the setup, the facilities, and everything was world class in that regard. Was easy for me just to land and do my craft with great gear and great people.
Yeah. Do you have a specific moment or event in your time at Willow that you remember as like, that was one of my favorite times or my favorite moments, just mixing that event?
Yeah, well, through my years over there, I have the opportunity and the blessing to mix the GLS several times. GLS is the Global Leadership Summit. And, it's an event that in that time was streamed to several hundreds of churches live and also to several countries via satellite. No pressure, right? to be the guy that is sending a content, and then we all have opinions and expectations, but through the years I learned that I prefer just to enjoy what I'm doing instead of just getting worried about how others are going to think or perceive my craft. And I'm very open to feedback all the time, so I think mixing that each year has been for sure one of the biggest beautiful experiences that I always remember. And just doing church on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
For me, it was the same amount of passion and love mixing a GLS or mixing a weekly service.
Mm-hmm. Were you mostly mixing live in the room or broadcast?
I did both, but I was mixing broadcast the most of the time. And again, the beauty of the difference is just that I think in the broadcast space, you have a little bit more opportunity to combine like studio workflows compared to just the live experience in a room, front of house in this case. But
yeah,
I also did monitors as well sometimes, and I think the value in monitors is more like a customer service value, making others happy instead of your own opinion or work in that regard.
Have you gotten to hear the new L Acoustics rig there?
Man, I want to go and listen because, finally the dream is happening, the dream is there. I was one of the dreamers about that project with several of my colleagues in those years. And we were dreaming with this day, and I'm happy that finally it's a reality, for our brothers and sisters over there in Chicago. And I want to go. I have an open invitation, and I want to go and to celebrate with them this great movement.
Love it. Well, for so many of us in church ministry, if you spend long amounts of time at different churches or a church has been around for a while, like there are just hard seasons that happened. And we know Willow has gone through a hard season, and you decided to step out of that role and to take on a different role. Can you talk to us a bit about just, the decision to change roles during that time and the difficult parts and, how God was leading you in that?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I remember when we received the first miracle to be parents with my daughter Jimena, and the desire of my heart with my bride was like, hey, can we look for something where you can be more present? So it's how basically we land in Chicago. I remember in that season, I sent like 100 resumes to all USA.
Wow.
And then I have like only 10 responses and basically like 3 real possibilities, I never forget the numbers, because when you are praying and asking the Lord for a new open door of possibility, that's something, and in that regard, Willow was fast, aggressive, of course, and aggressive in terms of time, because I think my process was like 3 months or so. When I was hearing stories that most of the time they took like a year to take a final hiring process or anything like that. So I was like in 3 months. And I also passed a process of 16 interviews.
Wow.
That's only 2 more than we do here at Church Gear.
You got it, man. I remember when I come back from my interviews, I tell my bride, man, I don't know. I'm exhausted before even started. Anyway, but yeah, man, when we find Willow, they were fast. Was a really clear open door for us. And we moved with all the faith. With, new beginnings can be scary. Really far away, for sure, from El Paso, Texas to Chicago. we drove for 3 days.
Yeah.
With the Penske truck and a car behind. Maybe I was driving so slow. I don't know. Well, we did three days. But Yeah, man. I mean, I think, again, like I mentioned before, I mean, I think I met, when we find Willow, I thought that I find the job of my dreams.
Yeah.
Doing ministry with high caliber people, world-class people. I mean, great gear. And then, situations happen, and it's not a secret that, a difficult season happened in 2018 that generate a lot of variables, in the staff. A lot of people choose to leave, a lot of executives or elders leave and quit as well in the process. We, the staff, in certain way, we were navigating this complicated journey with no senior pastor yet in place, I mean, although and still trying to be faithful, doing your thing, doing ministry, right? Doing services. And anyway, so was difficult for sure. A lot of learnings in the process. Again, I will forever be grateful with the learnings. One of the words that I think I shared recently, that I think is something that God gave me and to my family about in this difficult season, was the word about Alpha and Omega, how God is the beginning and the end, and how in real life sometimes the endings can be painful the most of the times, and also new beginnings can be scary. Mm-hmm. But if God is with us in both the scenarios, I mean, he's the Alpha and the Omega, he's with us in any ending, and he's actually already waiting for us with open arms and smiling in any new beginning. So it's how, after we choose to stay, the situation happened in 2018, we choose to stay for almost 3 years, 2 years and a half or so. But then we realized that maybe our best next step and our best contribution to the space was just to move on. A lot of things changed to be different, new direction, new leadership, new values, new budgets, why not, And again, it's where I'm also embracing big picture perspective in that process. And I'm not saying that one way is good and the other one is wrong. No, at the end, God is the one building his church. Mm-hmm. We are just the help, and we are just for a season wherever we are. So I'm navigating my ministry journey with that perspective now. So God provided this new opportunity over here in Phoenix, Arizona. And CCV, we came, we visit, and we love the people, we love the community and what God was doing and is doing, in the city. And at the end, I'm giving myself the chance to believe again, to dream again, to do ministry again, with a happy heart, with a grateful heart. It's perfect? No. It's challenging sometimes? Yeah. There are busy seasons? Yeah. Things change or can change? Well, yeah. But remember, I'm embracing the value of a season that is more than today, less than forever. And with that in mind, with that in perspective, I'm walking my journey open-handed. Yeah. Because I know that I'm not going to be here forever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wait, Toby, we're going to die one day?
You're going to be buried with, some of the gear in the warehouse. So
okay,
you will be a permanent fixture of church gear.
Okay. Well, then I live forever.
Yeah. So, Yvonne, I loved the opportunity to get to visit you and the team at CCV. You're welcome for not bringing Blake with me on that one. To disrupt the
Toby, you're welcome, because I would have went to the fantasy footballers headquarters, because that's where they're located, and I would have taken your case to them and they would have prosecuted you.
And you also probably would be in prison for stalking them, because they'd be like, who is this creepy weirdo that is trying to break into our offices or studio?
Toby, if they even knew who I was, that would be enough to make me so happy.
That's true.
I have no idea.
Even if you're in prison, you'd be happy about it. So, Yvonne, kind of the sense I got even just stepping into the auditorium at the broadcast campus was just a sense of calm. Like your team is calm, your environment's calm, things are organized, you have processes, it's well thought out. It's almost like cleanliness and organization and forethought is just who you guys are, and you're not constantly overreacting to putting out fires. And that was just, the perception I got from visiting one time. Do you feel like that's kind of accurate? Like you guys have put into a system just of organization in your space and processes? And how does that affect your workflow and your ministry there?
Yeah, well, I'm so happy that you feel that way and you're busy. I mean, that you feel welcome, that you feel welcome in spaces, clean spaces. Yeah, we are very intentional. And I think it's part of the vision of the house, to provide a lot of spaces for people to hang, to have a lunch, to have dinner after church. Family is a big thing. That's why there is a lot of sitting spaces, areas where you can, after service or right before service, and just to hang with your family and have a meal. So we are trying to bring that value to the spaces where we work as well, the broadcast suite or the front of house booth. I mean, because we also have the blessing to have a great team of volunteers. So we want to make them feel welcome, that they belong, that they are loved, Of course, we have busy seasons when sometimes we left things behind and we need to go and clean or send the email and the friendly reminder, like, who is these items or whatever, But there is beauty in the power of the team. I mean, we know that this is a value for us that we are carrying together, and I'm happy that you feel that way. That's good to hear because we have intentionality on that.
Yeah. It's, it seems like such a simple thing, but here at Church Gear, our podcast studio is in our shared office space. If you came to our headquarters here, you'd notice we put gear almost everywhere except for the podcast studio and shared office space because, Blake, what will happen if somebody tries to put gear in here?
I am a minimalist clean freak. I haven't told anybody this, but I've started stuffing all the little knickknacks Frank leaves on the desk in here into random cupboards. Like he's got random keyboards in here. I'm like, no one uses this.
So Yvonne, is it like an intentional thing for you guys to say like, hey, our production spaces need to be clean and organized? Because I've been to both. I've been to ones that are just beautifully clean and organized and you just have this sense of calm. And I've been to others where like there's old coffee cups and the doesn't look like it's been vacuumed and you have this kind of anxiety that builds up because of that.
Yeah, it looks like Toby had lived there for a little bit.
Shut
up. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's intentionality on that. I think we are not perfect in that value, but we are trying. We have clarity that we want our people that are coming to our spaces that they can feel welcome, that they can feel calm, and that they can have a good conversation in a clean space. And again, thinking in our volunteers as well. I mean, we have the cafeteria as well that is like open seated space where you can have a coffee or a meal. We joke about it, but we call it like when we after run through or after a rehearsal, we go like, let's go and do French fries ministry. But it's basically the space just to hang and connect and to ask for what is the name of your kid, different kind of questions, not just like how was the transition over here or over there, or how much river I'm adding to the snare. I mean, that's not the space to have that combo, but of course we talk about everything, right? But yeah, there is a lot of intentionality in that, and it's a value that we want to carry, to have clean spaces and to make the people feel welcome.
And what are some ways you guys intentionally behave in order to keep volunteers and staff around long term, to reduce turnover and really invest into people long term?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we try to be, I'm going to share several examples about that in my mind are very basic and simple, and doesn't mean that this is the absolutely only way or the best way, right? But we try to have waters, candy in the green room. I mean, the basics for people to grab a water, and for volunteers, I mean, we share a coupon where they can have a meal. When they're in service, they can go and have a free meal, and French fries ministry again present, and trying to be intentional with the schedule as well. We try to send 4 weeks or 5 weeks in advance if they are going to be serving in PCO. we have a great combination of contractors and volunteers, but we try to share similar values with them in that regard. Good communication, because we understand that these are humans that also have a real life or regular life outside of their service, volunteer reality in church. There is always opportunity to invest with someone, and to have a good combo, a coffee, a meal, to send an email of encouragement, a text, to check in about someone, not just because we really care, not just because you didn't show up to do the camera or whatever,
I like the sound of this French fry ministry. How do I get in on that?
I was just thinking, Blake, if it's like youth ministry is offering you water and production ministry is offering you pimento cheese.
Let's do it.
I think you're all in. Yvonne, I feel like so many churches, they focus on like, let's get volunteers signed up. Let's get them in. Let's get them trained. And then it's like the investment is gone. And we forget that sometimes it's just the simplest things. Like, I don't know how many times our guests have said, feed your volunteers, feed your team, and to have clean spaces where they feel welcome and not raising the level of anxiety. But it's not rocket science. Like, do the simple things to schedule clearly and communicate well, and your people likely want to stick around.
And Toby, you should start doing some of those things too. We might have less turnover.
That's why I hired Brian to do that for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's like not that crazy impossible to accomplish, to provide waters and buy a pizza for your team or something. I mean, those are the basic things that we should be considering, and put it in a budget because, again, people are giving their time. Investing their time. So it's the minimal things that we can do to make them feel that we care, that we love them. And
Love that. Well, we want to ask you some mixing specific questions since you are the Latin genius of mixing audio.
The shirt is in the mail. The shirt is in the mail with that title.
So what's, if you had your own writer, what's your go-to console? Either live or broadcast. You can choose a different one for either.
Yeah, man. Well, that's very tough to answer in these days because all the products are great. If I can choose, I think because of the sound, I will choose Yamaha Rivage.
Okay.
I think, and my experience has been the one that sounds more like an analog tool with all these Rupert Neve preamps and all the goodies.
Yeah.
But I love other brands like Avid consoles. I mean, I love the integration with Waves and Pro Tools that you can automate all those things per song, per snapshot. Like that's fantastic. I guess in these days, I mean, any of those tools are great resources, but at the end, I think it's the user that make the best with whatever you have in your hands. Yeah. That's my perspective.
Do you have a preference for live versus broadcast, or does it just depend on the day for you?
Yeah, I love both. I always bring my heart and soul in both of the opportunities. It's different customer. I use the phrase different customer, right? In terms of levels, the ratio between speech and music is different targets to accomplish, but the heart is the same. For me, it's just the art of mixing. For me, is just having the opportunity to represent the art of so many, and you are carrying that in your hands and just trying to make it prettier or better or powerful as the intention is on stage.
I want to give you the reverse of Toby's first question. What is the lowest quality console that you can be like, you know what? I can still make this work. Like, it might be a little painful or annoying, but I can make this work.
If you have a great band.
Yes.
You have a great band, but really bad console?
Yeah. What's the worst console you could still make work with a great band?
Can I say names? Like
sure.
brands?
Well, hey, we don't have any. Our only sponsor is 64 Audio. So you can say anything about any console you want.
Right. Oh, man. Well, I remember that I have a really bad experience in the past with a great band, but the console was one of those PreSonus with the blue knobs. That's kind of complicated. And again, maybe if I have the time to study or to go deeper, I make the thing happen, right? But that was very stressful.
Yeah.
And again, I think the tool is important to be for the operator to bring the best of your craft and also the best representation of the artist or the people on stage. So in that regard, I feel a heavy responsibility in my shoulders.
Ivan is such a cool cat. It's hard for me to imagine him being stressed. So that answer, that holds a lot of weight.
Yep. Are you in either broadcast or live? Are you mixing 100% in the box? Or if you have your way, do you have some favorite outboard gear you would have with you?
Yeah, well, in my Willow days, I request for the broadcast space. I mean, it was a Rivage console, right? But I ask, and I feel blessed that they say yes, but a Manley MU.
Oh, yeah.
And I add that in the 2-boss. I miss that unit like crazy.
Yep.
Super fun. In my years, also collaborating in Sonic Ranch. That is a beautiful facility studio recording in Texas. Bricasti River is one of my favorites for sure.
Yep.
Expensive, but amazing. And here at CCVA in the broadcast suite, we have a SSL Fusion added in the insert for the 2-boss. And that was a great unit to add. At front of house, we are just using the internal plugins with Avid system. And it has been working good.
Yeah. What are a couple of your favorite plugins?
Oh, man. I own too many.
Yeah. No such thing.
And I always tell my friends, and I call friends just to be accountable, and we have a local joke like, repeat after me, I don't need more plugins. And sometimes we just call each other just to give us a hard time, and we go, but only when they are on special. Yep. So man, I'm a kind of basic guy, I mean, I love Altiver reverbs for reverb. I love RBox plugin, PCE, Gate. I love the classic 11D76.
Yeah.
And LA2As, I mean, one or the other, or sometimes both. And in this new technology, now you can choose wet and drive, kind of a parallel processing. So either that you can go heavy in the settings, you can move the knob of wet and drive to 50%, so it's more friendly in that regard. I do a lot of my compression in parallel, post-fader. So, man, very basic in that regard.
I love everything you're saying. Like, I am tracking with you 100%, and Blake is like, translator.
Toby, if you haven't noticed that I smile and nod at everything, I mean, it gets you by.
We were just talking, and I don't know exactly when this episode will come out, but we're a couple weeks ahead of Black Friday right now, and so Blake was just sending out messages about a brand that he loves and their Black Friday specials they're running. We're kind of talking about the things that get us to buy and the things we don't. I'm right there with you. Every Black Friday, it was like, what are the UA plugins? What are the Wave plugins that are on sale? Like, that's where I'm spending my money. That was my crack cocaine, Blake.
I am paying attention. We will now have a plug-in social post about that is the crack cocaine for the tech community.
That's right,
man. Now I'm going to be adding your cell phones to my plugin list, and call you brothers. Repeat after me. No más plugins.
I love so much that he has a you don't need more plugins accountability group. Yep. That's hysterical.
And Ivan, I've heard some myths about your room mic setup. Can you explain to us what are you guys doing in broadcast for your room mics, and how can our listeners do something similar if they want to pull it off?
Yeah, well, I think in these modern days where we are streaming and a lot of people are watching our services online behind a screen with a Android or iPhone or laptop. I mean, I think also in my Willow days, I was really intentional about making that, I'm using this word again, this customer, this viewer, feeling if he was in the room or missing the invitation to be in the room. Double strategy there. So the ambience response is crucial to accomplish that regard, because of course in a broadcast product you can accomplish a great mix that sounds like a record. It's possible to accomplish that with the tools that we have today, but the ambient response play a huge component in that regard. Like the people, if the teaching pastor is engaging with the room and then you have people clapping or reacting, I mean, that can be super helpful. And again, here at CCV, we are streaming from the broadcast campus, the teaching to the other 16 campuses. So when the people is clapping or reacting, I mean, we want to send that as well. And so it's feel connected so the people can also feel the invitation to clap in their own spaces in the other campus. But yeah, well, at this moment at CCV, it's a 3,000 room auditorium. We only have 6 ambience mics. I think we still have opportunity to add maybe another 2. Again, just because why not another 2, right? In Willow, I used to have 11 mics, but it's a 7,000 room auditorium.
Yeah.
Again, different mics, different positions, always trying new things and trying to have different textures and colors from the different spaces. And of course, there's the classic question, well, you don't want to leave the mics open all the time and all that, and that's true. But it's where with the technology, you can be side-chaining the room ambience mic. For example, side-chain the group of the ambience mic with the teaching pastor mic. So when the pastor is talking, the room is chilling.
Yeah.
And when the pastor stops talking, the room show up. You can do all those levels of automations with the technology that we have in place in these modern days. I'm all in about ambience response.
Yeah, it's just amazing the level of production that's able to be translated to, different campuses or a viewer at home, or I'm sure at CCV, you guys have people tuning in from all over the world, countries that it's illegal to go to church, and they're experiencing a bit of what it's like to be in that room with everybody in there.
Yeah, man, it's a great value for us, trying to reach the people wherever they at, and using in the best of our abilities the technology that we have in our hands. And we're a great team. I mean, I feel so blessed to have a great team in collaboration. The audio team is great, and I think we are always sharing our mixes and prints and sharing feedback and encouraging each other, and we share open-handed, like, oh, it's amazing, but I hear that your reverb or your snare was a little too loud or was a little dry. You can try a little bit more reverb. I mean, we are always making questions. It's very common for us that we do this kind of thing on a weekly basis, that we can embrace the comfort zone and already say, well, it's something great already. And, the success of today can be the biggest risk for the growth of tomorrow in that regard. So we are always trying to push a little bit more and keeping asking the question what we can do better.
Yeah.
Toby, I really like his approach on how he's so encouraging to his team. It's very clear, but he's also pushing them forward. That's a nice leadership style, being encouraging, being still pushing us forward.
Yep. You're not as dumb as I thought you were, Blake. Keep going.
Hey, that's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. Yvonne, I'd like you to keep going and give us a tech takeaway, man. You've given us a lot of encouragement on this episode, like I said, on treating our teams, I think, in that really nice lane of pushing while comforting. What else you got for us? What could be something that any tech team anywhere of church of any size take away from this episode and use at their church?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much. Again, it's a great honor for me just to be in this episode with you. I'm really appreciate what you are doing, your mission. It's really awesome to see how God is using you to be a blessing, a resource of blessing for other churches and communities. I think, again, just embracing the need of the two things, people, it's all about people. So we need to take care of our people with encouragement, with a pizza, with a bottle of water, with a text, like with something. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
That's the invitation. And embracing several values, if I can just debrief, I mean, remembering we all are just in a season wherever we are. So if we embrace that perspective, that way we can always be developing others, because I'm not holding to my thing. I'm not holding to nothing anymore. I'm not holding to my title. I'm not holding to my console or my position or my role. I'm not holding to nothing. Because if I embrace the value that I'm there just for a season, that is more than today, less than forever, can be tomorrow. So that means that I want to leave the space better than I find it. Other thing that can be encouraging for people listening is that we all are called to do ministry full time. Doing ministry full time is not just someone that is working in this organization called a church. Doing ministry is how we live outside of the building, how we love our families, or brides, or marriage, or kids. What we do outside of the buildings of church, that's for me doing ministry. I like to mention that because so many people think like, oh, I'm working full-time in ministry, thinking that only the person that is on staff on church is in full-time ministry. And no, we all believers are in full-time ministry. And if you didn't know that before, today you know. We all are in full-time ministry.
Ivan has now placed the age of accountability on every one of us now.
That's right.
That's not good. That's more responsibility. And that's actually really timely. We had the missions fair at church on Wednesday, and so all the kids, they're sophomores, they had to see all the different mission trips, and we tried to impress that upon them at the end that like, these are 3 mission trips, and that's great, but also you're on mission 24/7. You're not on mission just if you take a plane somewhere.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
good.
That's
beauty in that. That's wisdom in that. And again, the other extra thing that I want to mention using the opportunity is, and we share about that as well. In any season of transition, embrace and remember the Alpha and Omega concept that God is with us in any ending that can be painful, but He's also waiting for us in any new beginning and smiling, by the way, because He want the best for us, His children. So keep rocking, keep doing what you do. Keep in mind that when God just changed your zip code to another assignment of ministry, He's the one building His church. We are then are just the help wherever we are. So let's try to make it amazing.
Yeah.
Toby, I'm concerned that Ivan just gave you a really good speech to use when you fire me. Look, like this is the Omega, and God is smiling.
Yep.
But
yeah,
that's very encouraging. Ivan, is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you want to point people towards?
He should plug plugins.
Oh my gosh. You want to plug your plug-in group about not plugging in?
I will say about plugins and process, less is more, familia. If B, the process, the concept A and B, when you are comparing 2 things, A and B, if the B doesn't sound better than A, maybe you don't need the extra thing that you are adding. It's a good time to go back to the basics.
That's a good plug. Well, thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate the time and all the wisdom you gave us today.
It's my honor. Thank you for you all, familia. Abundant blessings.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, so Black Friday, I'm going to be tempted by plugins, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be tempted by red shoes. Like, that's kind of my thing. How about you?
Black Friday, I will be tempted by some Brooks running shoes, as they are like twice the price as they were last year, and I've been waiting. I have a hole in my shoes. I'm waiting to get them on
Are
Black
you
Friday.
running?
Yes.
You don't look like you're running.
That's what I'm telling my doctor. I've complained about it.
So, if you're on Black Friday and you're just burnt out on shopping, you've already bought all the things you want, what should you do next?
You should run to send this episode to a friend and be like, hey, I know they talked about Black Friday and this came out in February, but you should listen to this episode. It'll be real encouraging.
That's right. And you can save 100% on this episode next Black Friday.